we'll just go around the group and see if there's something, if anybody has some new news or exciting news that they'd like to share. And I'll start. So I'm Dan, and the exciting news is thanks to the help of Connie Loden and Paul LaChapelle, we submitted an article to the International Association of Community Development magazine. So hopefully, Connie, you can nod if that was accepted. I don't know. So she's not responding, so that may not be good. So hopefully we'll get some broad publicity about our work. So that's my good news. At least it was submitted.
Well, good. Hello, everybody. I'm Chris. I know that I've kind of been in and out doing stuff behind the scenes to this point, but I think that you'll get to know me a little bit better today. As far as exciting news, we had from the practitioner and the research abstract side for CDS, we had 92 submissions that are going out to go to reviewers. So that was a good thing. So hopefully in the next 3 or 4 weeks, people will be getting their reviews in, and we will be hearing, about the different proposals and the different presentations for CDS. I don't know if that's exciting or a lot of work, but it's a good thing. It's always good to share, good work. So, Sharon, I think you're up.
Sorry, having trouble unmuting. So exciting news. Well, I am officially retiring on December 22nd.
And sad news.
But the exciting news.
Exciting for you. Yeah.
I got the rehire letter today, so I will be coming back part-time starting January the 15th. So I will be back at the university for a year.
Well, congratulations on your new job.
Yep. So the new job is, well, you can't see it, but I'm at home here, is hopefully photography.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll see.
Very cool.
So, Sharon, is that at University of Kentucky, they do kind of a year-by-year post-retirement type, it's a little different than working there, but, you can do it for several years. Can you do that, or is it just 1 year?
Yeah, basically it's 1 year can be renewed, but they basically were just going to say, oh yeah, we'll just have you come back. And I said, not without a letter. I want something in writing. So yeah. So anyway, we'll see how it works out.
Good.
Excellent. Chelsea.
Am I unmuted? Can you hear me okay? Yeah, good. Hi, I'm Chelsea. I'm Rhonda Phillips. Well, I'm a student at Purdue in sustainable food and farming systems, and I'm interested in pursuing development studies as a master's. For now, I'm applying for the Peace Corps to be an urban agriculture trainer in Senegal. So, but looking forward to potential graduate degrees. I am going to be part of the team, and we'll figure out how I can be one of the student helpers, liaisons, and do some research for this. As also as part of the capstone project for a Dean Scholars program in the College of Agriculture. So, yep. I also have an international studies minor. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to figuring what this all looks like and how I can help out.
It's good to have you on board. And so John Hill and Gary Gorham that are online here are also working with the student initiative, and they may consult or invite you in to help talk about that aspect of it too. So,
great.
Yeah, wonderful. Good to have you on board. Virginia, how are you?
Hi. Hi, everyone. So let's see, report from Detroit. So our team has been in contact and meeting some, and I think some good news is we submitted a think tank proposal to CDS Detroit. It helped us put down on paper some of the things that were important to us that we hope to pursue this year through these fellows. And I think just so far, good news is this has been productive in bringing together people and initiative so that we can talk about the issues that are important to us, specifically Madhavi Reddy, who's on the team but not with us this afternoon. She's presenting her final community development capstone project tonight, which has a lot of themes that we're pursuing in our Fellows project. So I'm just excited that collaborations and crossovers are starting to happen with the work that Lauren and Madhavi and Aaron and Ashley and I are hoping to pursue. So I guess that's my good news. Lauren, you can add anything to that.
Daniel, you're muted.
Oh, he's muted.
I was telling you you were muted. Yeah, I should look at my own.
Virginia you covered everything.
I covered it. Good.
All right, Lauren, good to have you on. Gary.
I'm Gary Gorham at North Dakota State University, working with John Hill and other students, as well as with Jim on international. And I guess the good news for us up here is that it's not snowing yet.
That is good news. I was in Sioux Falls yesterday. So it was actually beautiful up there. John?
Hi, everybody. I'm John Hill from the University of Kentucky. I am in the Young Professionals group for this project, and I don't really have any great news to share. I'm just really focused on December 9th, which is the end of my semester for, yeah, I just need it to be done.
Understandable, yeah. Okay. Craig, welcome. Want to give a word of introduction?
Sure. Things are good here in upstate New York. They're so good, we're hiring another person to our department. So I have to leave at 5:30 to go take that person to dinner. So sorry. So I'm on. I do have some news from CDS regarding sort of how we'd like to feature the fellows, and I can share that now or later, whatever you would prefer. Dan, you're muted.
I know. I keep doing that so that it doesn't interfere with the rest of you guys.
Thank you.
Hey, I would love some good news.
Okay, so a few things. So I do have a question for Virginia, if you don't mind unmuting for me. The think tank proposal that you submitted, was that for all fellows, or just your particular project?
That one was just for the Detroit fellows. We thought we would try to get something in more specific in addition to hopefully participating in a larger panel or something.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I love, I'm out CDAs who's our president of programs. So if anyone submitted an individual think tank or roundtable for the conference, shoot me an email so I can flag them to make sure that extra attention to them, because they're going to be vetted, and we moved managing model, so we have Justin Doyle, who's just a fantastic managing director. We'll try on in.
Hey, Craig.
Please.
One second. Yeah. So, is it me or does everyone having broken audio?
Yeah.
Really
Okay.
broken off.
Yeah. So we're getting just pieces of what you're saying.
Okay. About
It's still bad. Yeah.
let me. I can, if it's easier, play it again. Every
No, it's not working. So.
I think so.
Okay. I will.
You'll type it in?
Yeah.
Okay. I could hear you typing really clearly.
All right. Let me call back the line.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh man, he's going to keep us in suspense now.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, if you want to work on that, we'll jump ahead and Jim. Oh, Jim just left us. Oh no, there he is.
Morning. Well, it's not snowing here because it's the middle of summer, but we're preparing for Christmas with watermelon and ice cream and all that kind of thing. The bit of news here is that Gary and I have been co-chairing the International Committee for CDS for some time, and we're developing statements on various topics that we feel the society should have statements on. So we've developed one around social inclusion, and we're working through the definition of community development. But the next one we're looking to deliberate is about community engagement and social cohesion in an age of polarization. So where we see polarized views on a lot of issues, how do we go about engaging with communities effectively? And the other bit of news at this end is that we have the Regional Science Association, which is a international organisation, and we have an Australian and New Zealand version of that. So we're hosting the conference of the Australian and New Zealand Regional Science Association here next week. So that's just yet another opportunity for people in regional community development to network with each other. But there must be some kind of cost-cutting campaign because I can't get the lights to work here. So we'll have to cope with that. Thanks, Dan.
It's good to have you back from your adventures in the outback. So.
Yeah, well, 5 days in the Windora pub was enough for me, and I'm recuperating.
It sounds adventurous and it's actually kind of fun from this end anyway. So good to have you back on board. Connie, you're muted.
Yeah, got to do that first. So we did submit an abstract for the conference, both to the CDS conference and to the IACD conference that's going to be in June as well, and that'll be in Ireland. And we are also exploring the potential of a foundation that might be willing to host a community change in-person meeting where we can look at more information on what do foundations need in community change resources, expertise, and assistance.
Excellent. So you were quiet before. I don't know if we were connected, but did the article make it to the IACD magazine?
Yes, I did get the article. The magazine's still in the process of all the editing, but it's definitely on the list, and so hopefully that will all be included.
I hope that it provides some visibility for this group. So
the one thing that would be helpful, Dan, is if you have a picture or something that you might like us, or a graphic that you might like us to include.
Okay.
We like to have like 2 pictures or graphics or infographics or something like that.
Actually, okay. I sent a couple, but I can.
And maybe you did, and I don't recall because that's back a ways.
It was so
for my brain.
I did, but if you need something else, let me know. So
yeah, will do.
Okay, good. Thank you, Rhonda. Quick check-in. You're muted also, Rhonda.
Okay.
There you go.
Well, we have good news. We have 2 students who are working with us on the project. Chelsea, you've met. She's an undergraduate student, so she's going to be working with our team. And then you'll soon meet Jonathan. He is a graduate student, and I'll let him introduce himself when we get down to that row. And we're just really happy to have both students working with us because this will be, it will help our project a lot because they both have interest in community development and also are doing work that touches on community well-being, quality of life too. So that's a nice overlap. So we're eager to have them on board. Glad they could join us today. I don't know if they can stay the entire time, but we're glad for whatever time they can get to the call. And we've got Craig, who's on the project too. We have 2 other colleagues on the project, but neither of them were able to come in. Our European partner, it's very odd time for them to be able to log on, so they couldn't do that. And our ISQUAL's director couldn't be on today, but she'll join us at some point in the future. So a question I have, just a quick one, is I may have misunderstood, but I thought there was going to be a roundtable or something for all of us to give sort of updates on our projects and what we're finding. So I didn't submit a separate roundtable proposal for our project. So I don't know. So Craig says he can answer that. Okay.
I think Craig may have the answers. We were hoping for a time where we could introduce what we're doing in the different project areas to the whole to the entire conference.
Yeah, more
And
like
then for more detailed follow-up, each group was encouraged to go ahead and submit a proposal or a roundtable or some other kind of presentation. So yeah, so we'll see. Craig, is your audio back on and working?
Can you hear me?
Very clearly, yes.
much better.
Sometimes the computer is the problem. So the update is if you have submitted your own roundtable or think tank, shoot me an email just to let me know, so then I can tell Justin and Cindy. So Justin is our managing director for Community Development Society. We moved away from a management company model. This will make us more versatile, and as well as it'll be a better stewardship of our resources. And so he's fantastic. His name is Justin Dillard, and we'll try to get him to introduce himself to you all as we get closer to the conference. Again, if you submitted your own individual thing to CDS, please, specifically through the think tank roundtable, any of the sessions that aren't the actual abstract. So the abstract is going to go through the normal process. So if you did through Scholar One, that's its own thing. But if you did through the Google Forms, let me know, and we can sort of flag it and make sure we pay extra attention to it. For the CDS fellows, as Rhonda mentioned, the plan is that we would love, and I know that Dan and Chris, you've had some back and forth with Cindy, which is great. And so she's asked me to sort of coordinate this on our end. So if you can send me what you sent her, that'd be great. And then what we can do is we can put it in. I think it's going to be best to put it in as a roundtable, and it'll absolutely, for the fellow program, will be accepted. That will absolutely be accepted. We may do some tweaks. We're going to have it vetted, of course, just for good measure. But it'll absolutely be accepted to feature our program. The other thing that we've been asked, and this comes from the vice presidents, specifically myself and Cindy, is that because this is an operation of CDS, it's financially sponsored, it's important that we have transparency. And so it'll be important that we have a report submitted about the fellows, so we can give a brief report at the Community Development Society business meeting in Detroit. So we'll need to have a report, and so that'll mean input for everyone here. And so everyone can sort of contribute and say, this is what we did with the money, this is what we're doing, and that's very important for transparency, because we want to make sure that we can use funds like these again. So that's the update. So for sure we'll have I believe roundtable is going to be the best way to have that for the entire fellow program. And then if you individually did things, then we would be glad to sort of give it extra care and attention. And so hopefully we can work through that.
Okay, so what I had posted is that for folks that had submitted to CDS, could you go ahead and in the chat list what you had proposed, whether it was a presentation or a roundtable or a birds of a feather or whatever that was, and then we'll have a running list of what was presented or submitted to CDS. And Craig, then also we're recording this, so I think, is it being recorded? Chris, good, yes. So we'll also have a list of this that we can send you everything from everybody if they don't have your email, although Craig Talmadge is in the list of folks also from the correspondence you got from this. So so go ahead, if you would, go ahead and chat that in. But let's go on to Aaron. We have Aaron and Jonathan yet that we've not heard from. So Aaron, do you want to unmute?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. Hi, Aaron Goodman, Community Development Advocates of Detroit, part of the Detroit team. Good news is I'm going on vacation next week, so that's nice.
That is good news.
And I'll be out of town. So, and other than that, just want to offer my encouragement to Chelsea because I was a returned Peace Corps volunteer in Senegal in urban agriculture. So, good luck, and happy to offer any advice your way about
I
that
would like
offline.
to chat sometime. That would be great. I just talked to our RPCV from Uganda this morning, so that was fascinating. But it sounds like you're even more similar. That's awesome.
Great.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely.
I'll put my email in the chat.
Okay.
Good connection. Awesome. Jonathan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Ware. I'm a second-year master's student at Purdue University. I've previously done research on the intersections between food insecurity and chronic illnesses and health in the Midwest. And my current research interests are the nexus between food, nutritional insecurity, access, and community development. And I'm glad to be here.
Very cool. Good to have you. Good to have you. Well, excellent. So we have gone around, we've checked in. Again, is that me echoing to myself?
Yeah, you're not.
I think it is. Okay. So Chris, do you want to take it from here?
Sure. So I'm so excited to see all of your lovely faces. We have several things we want to get done today. And I know that I've been in contact with many of you as far as talking a little bit about the direction of the different projects that are associated with this program. And so a primary goal of what we're going to do today is definitely get all groups. And so one of the first things we're going to do is kind of break everybody into groups. And generally we would have group time at the end when you guys can kind of work and talk and plan for the future. But we're going to do this kind of on the front end because Dan and I are going to talk with each group individually about the ideas that you have for your projects and kind of what the next steps would be in order to get those off the ground and move them in the right direction. So one primary goal today is going to be able to kind of have a plan to move into the future and a really concrete plan for each project. One of the things that you should, I think, Dan, you sent that out in an email that you should have.
I did.
Okay, in your email it's more of a guide than anything, but it is a sheet of different aspects that should be in this proposal that we're asking for you to turn in by our December meeting. Okay, and so this is probably a variation of what you proposed in the very beginning to apply to the Fellows program, but it's a little bit different because now you get to meet with your group and kind of tweak it and hone in on a little bit of it and make it a little bit more specific according to kind of the goals and the deliverables and things for this program. So use it as a guide to help you frame the discussion that you're having today, kind of make plans for how you're going to move ahead. We do have access to the money that is going to kind of fund each one of your group's projects. And so as part of this, there is an aspect of kind of a budget. So each group is going to be able to have $2,500 at their access to do what you need to do for your group project. What we ask from that, however, is basically a budget on how you will spend that money. And so that's also part of this kind of outline that you should have kind of sitting in your inbox that says, okay, these are the questions that we're going to try and answer. These are the I don't want to call them projects, but these are kind of the aspects of the activities that we're going to undertake. Here's the budget. This is what we expect, the deliverables that we want to have at the end, et cetera, et cetera. And so ultimately when we talk with each group, you can use that to start jotting down and direct where your proposal is going to. And ultimately the proposal that you turn into Dan or I in December will have all of the pieces that are on this it's not a manuscript. It's basically kind of a list of questions that you have that's sitting in your inbox right now. So that's the first.
It is.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I was going to say it is. I sent it out as we were meeting. It's called the CIL Fellows Project Application. And it really just goes through a couple of questions. What is it that you hope to learn from the project? What are your goals? What's your anticipated budget? And for that, it's again toward what Craig was asking for in terms of a little bit of accountability. We just want to know generally how you anticipate spending funds, what activities you'll pursue, and the next two questions on it are really geared for our benefit. And while each of us have independent projects that we're working on, we also see that there's a collective benefit in that we're learning from each other's mistakes or learning from each other's progress and what we're finding. So the last two questions are then, how does that help us pursue, again, expanding our membership for the Community Development Society, and for our existing members, how does this help or benefit the kind of, how do we add richness to the experience of being a Community Development Society member? So, and those might be tough questions to answer, but that's actually something that when we get into our small groups today, I want us to think about.
And they can be a little bit, I mean, this time is meant for you guys for us to kind of chat within the small groups about, and as you can see, can you guys see the form? I have it up on the share screen. So you all should have that in your inboxes. I mean, some of this doesn't have to be as direct as it sounds. Obviously, if you're working on some type of increased knowledge for the field, that's going to benefit CDS membership and individuals. And so some of this is a little bit more indirect, perhaps is the right word. But ultimately, these are the different things we would like for you guys to think about and speak to when you're putting together your proposals for December. So that's the primary goal in the very beginning, is we're going to take probably about 30 minutes, I would say, maybe 45 if we need it. That's perfectly fine. And get into our groups and talk with either Dan or myself about, where you're at with your proposal, thoughts, kind of moving ahead with that direction. And then we're going to come back, and the content that we're going to talk about today is we're going to really delve into what creativity and innovation mean, kind of the definitions behind those, and what that looks like when we apply that within more of a civic engagement, community engagement kind of realm, community development, if you will. And I have a couple really cool websites that do a lot of this kind of innovation within a social entrepreneurship, social innovation kind of realm. So I think it'll be really cool to have a chat about that. The other thing that we wanted to do today is unveil our very own website for this group. I know that we have been in the past trying to kind of find our fit on the CDS website, and I know that they've made an attempt to do that, but we have found another option. I think that's going to be a little bit more direct. It's going to be a little bit easier to access, and it's going to also mean a consistency for everybody to be able to see the exact same page, the exact same site, no matter if you happen to be a member of CDS or not a member of CDS, et cetera, et cetera. So we have, and I will introduce that right now so I can show you where it's at. And again, it's not complicated, but I do think it makes things a little bit more seamless as far as finding out information about this group. One of the things that I know that a few of you have approached me about is that you really love engaging in this group, but sometimes it's getting information and kind of knowing where things are at is a little more challenging. So hopefully this website will help that. All right, I need to share my screen.
Yeah, please do.
There we go.
So this is something that I'm a little torn up about. I love that CIL has a really nice looking website that we can connect and convene on. But in the long haul, I'm hoping that we can get back also to, in our planning here on the Community Innovation Lab website, we can scheme about how we get more people involved also on the Community Development Society website.
And we definitely still want an interface. There are some of you that have said that once you get done, with this meeting, that you will be willing to write, a couple paragraphs of a blog for things that you learned, new ideas, and so that still will be done at a specific place on the CDS website. But right now, so that we can all be on the same page, see the same things, know that there's kind of one central location to find all of this. And I will email you all of this information. And again, you'll be able to find it also. There's an announcements portion on this website. So I think it'll end up proving to be a really good place to see all these different resources and things. The actual website is underneath the community. I need to move it down. communityinnovationlab.org. Okay.
Hey, Chris, it might just be me, but I cannot see your screen.
You can't?
Nope. It's blank.
That's weird. Okay, I'm going to stop and try again. Is it still black?
Yeah, I can't see anything.
Dan, can you see anything?
I can see it.
I can see it.
Right,
I
it's
can
just
see
me.
it.
Can you see the light bulbs?
Yep.
You can see the light bulbs? Okay. So communityinnovationlab.org. Probably about 4 or 5 years ago, myself, Brian Haynes, and Ron Hustody began the social, kind of a community education, social science lab, if you will, and that's the Community Innovation Lab. We are going on our 3rd year now, and so this is the website for the lab, and there's lots of great things. I would encourage you, if you have a chance at some point in time, to kind of just run through some of the different cool things that we've done as part of a lab, what it's about. We have, who's in the lab, all these different types of great things on this website. However, if you go across the top to where it says Fellows, okay, and you can see there's a Fellows program, there's a Lab Fellows. Ours, if you go, the bottom 2 are for CDS. The group that we are currently engaging in is what we're calling the CDS Fellows program. So if you click on this one, this throws you into, again, our very own page, okay? And so we start with a top basic, a basic 2 or 3 sentence blurb about what's going on, why we're together, what the current aspects of. We're really focusing on this idea of innovation with community engagement within different contexts. Then it actually lists the 5 different kind of content groups that we have. And then you see a section underneath that says announcements, okay? In the future, now obviously there are no announcements right now because up until this point nobody knew this page existed, so we decided that we didn't really need to put anything here. After this point, we will put things such as, perhaps when we hear about different aspects associated with the conference. We could put things, the next Zoom meeting I will put up here so that you guys, if for whatever reason you lose the email, you can come on to here. Maybe different announcements if there's other different exciting things associated with people. But any current information that you guys are looking for, realistically, should be under the announcements section. Okay, and we'll keep that pretty up to date as far as, day-to-day type things. If you keep scrolling down, you see resources. And this is where I really hope to start collecting all the really great things that we're talking about and doing within this group. Okay, so today there is, like I said, a website out of Stanford that really has a lot of great things about social innovation. And we will go through there. I will actually post the website on here underneath web links. So in the future, if you wanted to go, you said, gosh, that's a really cool thing that we talked about in November. You can go under web links and you can click on that and go straight to there. Okay. If we happen to have any, articles or pieces of websites or current publications that we read, we could put links underneath readings. All the meeting archives, including the one from last month, I'll get that one from Dan, are going to go underneath this meeting archive. So you'll be able to click on October meeting, November meeting, December meeting. You'll be able to kind of, if you're looking for, maybe you don't remember the discussion that was had or you're looking for a specific resource. And then at the bottom here is the member introductions and contacts. So if you go under here, and I'll just click on myself because I know it will pop up. Remember we asked you guys to pull up or put together your PowerPoints to kind of introduce yourselves? That's what will pop up, okay? So we have everybody, as you can see, all that we have is up there. So if your name isn't up there in green, I am calling you out nicely. Send me or email me your PowerPoint that you put together and we will absolutely upload it and people will be able to click on that link on your name and be able to go to find out the information as far as kind of your introduction to this group, okay? So again, nothing real complicated, guys. I think it's a good place that we have everything in one spot. So if you have a question and you can't get a hold of Dan or I, or you're just wondering about something, this is the place to go and you should be able to find it here. Now, the one other thing that I am encouraging us as part of this engaging in this group that we're going to do in the future, that I would love for us to engage in the future, is this, and we're calling it a blog page, although I think we're going to change the name to discussion page. Part of the beauty of this group, guys, is the fact that there is so much expertise, knowledge, content knowledge, experience sitting around this. We can call it a table virtual table for lack of a better word. Okay. And so a lot of this is talking about, things like creativity, like innovation, like community, but it's also, what have you tried? What have you done? Best practices, what worked, what didn't, sharing kind of these personal experiences and things that you've learned throughout, your experiences, jobs, working with communities, etc. Every month after we get together, and you'll see it on the PowerPoint that I have for later, we're going to kind of tie things up with a kind of a thought question. And so we can kind of continue this, this discussion that we have, and we always have really great discussions that move into, we kind of say, oh, we got to stop because everybody's got to move on and go do other things. And that's great. This allows us to kind of maybe jot down a little bit of what we were trying to get across if we got cut off or whatever into this discussion board. So for this month, the question is, and this is the last question we'll kind of tie up today with, what are the most innovative techniques or methods you have seen used to engage community? This can be something you've done. This can be something that you went to and you're like, oh my gosh, I wish that I had thought about, how to do it that way. But start thinking in the back of your mind, again, how does all this apply to me? How can I innovatively engage my community? Have I participated in something that's really cool? Have I read about something that's really cool? And again, you can go, when you go into here, this is again under the Fellows blog page. The only thing you have to do is click on comment, and then there'll be a screen that pops up and you can comment in that now. You do have to say comment as guest and you put your name in the top. So I will show you. I'll just do one really quick right here. If you click on comment, it says, I will say, let's say community forums in Versailles, Kentucky. Okay. Now you hit post. Now, when that screen pops up, I'm going to put my name in there. And you just hit comment as guest. See? And it pops up right there. Christina Haynes, Community Forum in Versailles, Kentucky. Okay? So don't be freaked out when the other screen pops up and it says, oh my gosh, I'm not allowed to do that. You absolutely can. You just have to click comment as guest. And if you put your name in there, obviously we know exactly who said it. Does that make sense, guys?
It does. One of the challenges we found with our CDS website, with the Fellows site, is that I think only 3 people had ever visited it, 2 including myself. So I hope the accessibility of this helps us to connect a little bit more freely.
Absolutely. And again, it really is as easy as clicking up here underneath Fellows, going down to the blog page, and then hitting comment and going. So hopefully this does allow for a little bit more to have a little bit of this conversation that we're talking about and trying to make those connections. That is part of the reason that we're trying to get this group together. Are there any questions about, something that you don't see you'd like to see, or something that is unclear how to get there? I think I saw Dan emailed out the actual link to the website.
I put it in chat and I emailed it so that, everybody could have a direct link to that site.
Cool. All right, guys. If there are no questions, we're going to now jump into the discussion groups that we are the groups, and start having the discussions about almost specific action terms, to move ahead with some of these projects. Okay.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
Just for really quickly before we leave the website.
Okay.
Is it possible under the 5 groups to include, participant names and institution and organization names?
That's a fabulous question, and I was going to ask you guys this. The amount of information that we put on here is absolutely up to us and actually you guys, because you guys are the participants. When we were developing this website or developing the content, because actually Brian helped develop the content, he developed the website. he said, do we want to put contact names for each one of these groups? And I said, I mean, I will ask you guys. So do we want to put all 4 or 5 individuals underneath the different groups with an email? I could put a contact sheet up there, so you have to actually click into the contact sheet. It just depends on how much interface or how much knowledge you guys, information that you want out there. So we can absolutely do, you know, whatever we need to do, Virginia.
Right. Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion at this point, but given that our group continues to grow, which is great, just even for me, maybe the website's not the right place, but just quickly being able to recall names affiliated with which group and then which organization folks are representing would be helpful.
I think it's
whether it's on the website. I think it would be helpful on the website. Maybe an email contact isn't necessary, but.
What does everybody think? I think that's a great idea, Virginia. And again, we had that conversation. I'm throwing this out there to the entire group. I think it would actually be really smart to say young professionals and grad students and have the 4 individuals under there and perhaps the email behind the lead person. And then, and that way you can, you know, go in there and quickly look at who's with what group. Okay. Is there any input from others about liking that, not liking that, thoughts?
I'd prefer that over having to click into yet another document to find somebody.
Absolutely. I think that's
I agree.
Okay. Is there anybody that doesn't care for that kind of layout as far as content, you know, to try and get to people? If so, if you don't want to necessarily say it in front of the group, that's fine. You know, either individually chat me in the chat room on here, or you can send me an email. That's perfectly fine. But we will do that. If I don't hear from anybody else, we will go ahead and kind of put the names under there so people can kind of connect names with groups and be able to get with, you know, contact with everybody. Is there any other questions or aspects about the website that, you know, comments?
Dan, Christina, it's Jim here, and I don't have a comment. I just have an apology, really. I've got an urgent meeting coming up shortly, so I'm going to have to step out for probably 40 minutes or so. So I'll try and reconnect. Apologies for that.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks.
Group, with that, were you looking for a list of names and email addresses, or just a live, you click on the name and you can email them, or what? As a list of participants under each of those group names. Everyone is muted.
Yeah, I'm fine either way.
Okay.
I think just to reiterate, in addition to the name, also the organization that the person is affiliated with, if that's relevant.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe we just have one email contact for each of the groups, but I'm not sure. I don't know how others feel about it. I don't know if everyone, you know, like in my group would want their emails listed. I don't know.
That's what I was wondering.
Well,
So
sorry, Dan.
go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say, here's the other thing, guys. The beauty about living with the webmaster is that we can put something up. And again, guys, here's the
Change
thing.
it. Yeah.
We are going to go there because we know it exists. I mean, it's not like there's going to be, it's not like there's going to be 1,000 people looking at this. Honestly, this is very much for our benefit as a group. So I can easily do something like you guys are suggesting, throw it up there. You can look at it and tell me if you like it or not. And it's very actually user friendly and it's pretty easy to change. So if we decide we don't like it, or there's too much information or something, that we can easily change it.
I think the main issue or concern would be, you know, bots that are reading email addresses. So, and there's ways you can get around that through, you know, just putting them more creatively with a AT instead of an @ sign or something on that order.
Okay. Well, again, let me know. Again, if we're going to jump into our rooms now. Let me know what you guys think, what you want, and we can try something. And then ultimately, if we like it, that's great. And if not, then we can absolutely change it. It's meant to be user friendly for you guys so that you can connect easily with each other and kind of know who to contact and to ease communication, if you will. Okay. Any other comments about or things that you would like to see on the website that you didn't necessarily see? Okay. Well,
That's
right
good
now we're
news.
going to jump. Yeah, right now we're going to jump into rooms, and I've only done this before, so I'm going to do this. And then, like I said, the goal of this is for you guys to start really pulling together a proposal that will be due, emailed to us before the next time that we meet. You guys have a guide for that in front of you, but Dan and I will start off in 2 of the rooms, and then we'll keep moving around until we have discussions with all of you, kind of like we would do around a classroom if we had one. And then once we're done with that, we will jump out of those rooms and we'll jump back into our presentation for today. Okay?
Sounds like a plan.
Chris, is it possible to jump back and forth between rooms? I'm going to need to be in the young professionals and the international room.
Yes. So I'm going to stick you in one, Gary. And then
Okay.
ultimately, if you just want to, I think, again, this technology, bear with me, guys. I think you can, in the chat box, say, hey, I'm done, or I want to move or something, and I can pull you out and put you into another room.
Thank you.
In theory. So we'll give this a shot. Okay.
Chris, what information do you need from us? You know who goes in which group?
Yes.
Okay.
So.
And so then just to kind of reinforce, as we go into our discussion groups, if you can pull up the form, the CIL Fellows Application Project form, it may guide your discussion in terms of also thinking about what kinds of questions we'll want to be talking about that need to be answered. And I did hear by email from Vanessa that she will be joining us here soon. And I do also think that we'll be joined by, I think it was Angelina. So hopefully our group will grow again. Chris, how's it going? So Gary, I think you're only one of the few that's not muted as we're going into this here. So I'll talk to you.
Hi.
Yeah, which group did you want to start in? You were going to start with the. It sounded like
Perhaps
you said
the student group, just for a young professional group for just a brief time, and
okay.
then switch over to international. I'm not sure who's all for international.
Well, that's what I was wondering.
Connie
Now that
and whom else? Okay.
I am part of the international, but I'm in 2 groups too, Gary, just like you are.
Is anyone else in international?
Vanessa will be joining us, but she's not on yet. And yeah, with Jim stepping out, I don't think we do have anybody right now.
Connie, maybe you and I should begin in international and then go to our other groups. Would that be a good logistic? You're muted.
It depends. Sharon's in my other group, so it's how do we divide our time?
And John, is there anyone else besides you and me in the young professional group?
Yeah, it just looks like you and I. So.
Well, Gary, why don't, since Vanessa's not on yet, if that's the person who's joining, right? That's from the international.
Right.
And why don't you meet in the young professional first, and then can see where when Vanessa comes on.
Terrific.
Okay, guys. I think that I have put everybody into appropriate rooms, I believe. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, I see our group is going away. So
Oh,
yeah.
It is correct. There's nobody else as far as international on here right now. I connected with Angela, and her web is down. And hey, don't go. I have one question for you. Her web is down, and so she won't be able to. So the only other person, Gary, besides Gary, for international would be Vanessa, like you said, who you mentioned is going to.
She's not here yet. Yeah.
So.
And Connie.
And Jim and Connie. Yep.
Okay. As far as the international part goes. So if we want to if you want to, Connie can talk.
I'll go to student or young professional for now then, if I may.
Good. Yep. And then Connie can talk with Sharon and you, Dan, as far as the Community Change Network. And then maybe towards the end of this chunk of time, we can get people back and we can switch people around a little bit.
Perfect. Send us on our way.
Okay. So Dan, where do you want to go first?
To the Community Change Group.
Okay. Which I believe is that one. Can you go now?
Breakout room 1.
Yeah.
See you later.
Bye.
Toodles.
Vanessa, can you hear me? Hi, how are you?
Good, and you?
Good. I'm glad that you could join us. Right now, what we did, so I want to show you a couple things before I get you. Right now, they're in individual groups, and we're talking about the projects that we're working on with the different groups, okay? And so ultimately, you will join, I'll have you join with Gary, and you guys can talk a little bit about possibly what the international group wants, the project that the international group wants to work on. We have a new website, which is really great, and it's really easy for everyone to get into, which is why it's awesome. And it is, what did you say?
Community Innovation Lab, is that?
Yes. So if you click on the Community Innovation Lab and you go underneath, at the very top it says Fellows, and then you pull that down, there's a thing that says CDS Fellows, and you click on that and it actually pulls up a web page that it lists the different groups. That's where the announcements will be. That's where we will put like recordings of this. So if you happen to have to miss one of these sessions and you want to go in and see what was talked about, et cetera, et cetera. All of the resources that are associated with this group are on that page. It doesn't matter if you're CDS member. It doesn't matter. I mean, there's not 14 places to click. It's just one place where we have all the information. So that's what we wanted to make it easy to get information and for people to communicate. And so that's where, at this point in time, we're going to kind of house all the resources, information, announcements. If you need information, that's where it'll be. Okay. And then the second thing, if you went up to the top of that page and it said CDS Fellows, there's one under it that says CDS Fellows blog, and it's actually more of a discussion board, but that's where we're going to put questions. So at the end of today, we're going to ask for you guys to share what innovative community engagement that you have seen or that you have done, techniques that you have seen or done and ask people to share those on there. And so we'll probably have something to chat about after every session that we have. So again, it's just a way to share ideas, to get people kind of communicating, and to have one consistent place where people can kind of join in, basically. So that was one thing that we talked about before you jumped on. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Okay.
And at this point, one of your connections is not on, and one of your connections is in the young professional student group. So if you want to, do you want to jump in and kind of talk with Gary and John and listen to what's going on in there until Gary, because the plan is that Gary is a part of two different groups. And so he's going to talk with the young professional student group first. And so you're more than welcome. I can put you in that group and you can kind of listen to the discussion. That's actually where I'm going as well. So, and then after that, you and Gary can kind of jump in and start talking a little bit more about the international. Okay. So I'm going to put you, all right. So I'm putting you into breakout room 2.
The best practices to engage students and young professionals. And our goals are to enhance the culture of the CDS conference and improve the culture of welcoming students and young professionals into CDS. And the way that we've been discussing this is through these project activities. The two main ones we have are these holding informational meetings about what CDS is and generating student interest through that, because we have this theory that students don't even know about CDS because we're not really talking about it. And then once we start talking to them about it, we can offer them a 50% off membership discount, because we know that students and young professionals don't have a lot of money. So we're thinking we can entice them by giving this discount to them. And then once we kind of engage with them, we have these bigger ideas about what to do after we generate that interest, and some of these things that we can do at the conference to keep young professionals and students there. And one of them that Gary and I had talked about previously was holding these events prior to the conference. That's almost maybe like a workshop, but you're kind of throwing your ideas out there. So you're not necessarily thinking about, oh man, I have to present at this conference. It could just be bouncing ideas off of what we'll call the old guard at CDS, and kind of almost like having a thesis or a dissertation meeting or committee, but there's no anxiety related to it, because it's kind of like a brainstorming session, if that makes sense. So we're just trying to find new ways to incorporate activities that can occur at CDS, so that way students aren't struggling to get permission or finances to attend these meetings. Because what we've heard in the past is, oh, I can't just tell my department chair that I'm going here to network. So kind of finding these other ways to get people involved and not just show up to the conference and just sit there and listen, but be active as well. Gary, did I miss something?
You covered all of our conversations. That's great.
Guys, I really, really, really like the idea of, I mean, I think that you're definitely moving in the right direction. I love the idea of having some type of a pre-conference. You know, the way I picture something like that would be like having maybe 2 or 3 of, I'm going to call them the old guard affectionately, but people who have, you know, experience, who have been in the profession for either a practitioner or within academics, but be able to sit there and kind of, you know, like John was saying, bounce ideas off or say, have you thought about this perspective, or have you thought about it from this angle? And I think that that could be really rich and actually a big draw for grad students to say, hey, you know, I could absolutely use a dry run, or, you know, without all the extreme pressure that we have, you know, sometimes. I love that idea.
Yeah, so, and then Gary put in something for our group, Birds of a Feather, is that right?
Well, I did submit it under Birds of a Feather. We'll see how Craig shuffles them out. I don't know that Birds of a Feather and the roundtables and all of that, how much they differ, or if we're going to end up having Craig shuffle them as is needed anyway. So we'll see how that emerges. But we're in anyway.
Okay.
I missed it, guys. I know you, John, you'd been talking. I was trying to, technology is a great thing. I was trying to figure out exactly how to get, and I was kind of debriefing Vanessa a little bit on what we had talked about and stuff. What are you guys doing on the front end? I know that part of this is to help have a more welcoming culture for grad students and young professionals at the conference, but what were you talking about kind of doing at the front end as far as, you know, getting some voice from students, doing a little bit of maybe background research? What was all of that?
So that was here where we talked about, where was it? So this is our major thing, is just we got to reach out. And so that starts with informing students about the organization. And so what we talked about are kind of this whole, like, if there's pizza, people will come. So using some of those finances to get pizza and get people to these meetings to talk about CDS. And then not only just talk about it, bring people in who might be students and have them give kind of testimonials about, you know, what were the benefits for them? What did they get out of it? What was it like? Would you continue going? Why are you still a member? That sort of thing. And then, you know, offering this discount that would help entice, you know, this membership for 50% off is the magic number that we came up with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Are you guys, so I guess the question is, are you talking with, there has been rumor there are CDS student organizations at some universities. Is that rumor? Is that true? And are you identifying, like, how are you going to figure out, other than the grad students? And John, I know that you have a list of current membership in CDS. So I know that you already have a list of, how did you end up counting how many grad students we currently have in CDS?
No, not yet.
Okay.
We did look at the number of students who have attended in the past, and the number I got was 17. So we are hoping to increase that. As far, Christina, as student organizations, we don't have any. And that we are aware of. And so that's one of our goals. If I can share my screen here, this is where we hope to get started on that very thing. This will be for, whoops, did it come up or not?
Nope.
Yeah, I can see it.
Oh, you can. Okay, I can't see it, so I'll let go at that. This will be on Wednesday. This will be our first one at NDSU. And so I've sent out this note to about everybody I can think of in terms of our CD minors, some graduate students, even some people working in the local area who have completed the Great Plains IDEA Master's Program. So initially it'll be a once-a-month gathering, not just a one-time thing. We have a student who developed a board game that he's marketing on homelessness. So one night we'll probably just do something like that. We'll have perhaps some service activities, but with the idea of actually forming a club and a campus student organization. What I'd like for us to be able to do, if we get enough, is to affiliate with the CDS. The challenge is that according to our guidelines, the POG, if you've heard of the POG, it does require so many people and so many members. It may be that we'll have to change the POG in order for us to actually affiliate. But that is our beginning point right there.
I think that's a great, again, I think you guys are all, these are really great ideas. How do you, because I'm thinking about all the people doing community development, all the other grad students at, John and I were talking about this the other day, at University of Kentucky, there are people within our program actually who are grad students in community and leadership development who may not know about CDS, which that's totally our fault and we will fix that. But, you know, we were even thinking people in social work, people over in, we have a public health, we have, I mean, there's people across campus kind of like you're doing. So obviously we've got UK covered, we've got NDSU covered. How have you guys thought about the idea of trying to get the word out for CDS on other campuses, at other places,
Yeah.
in the United States, kind
That's
of?
on our list.
Okay.
That's
We
on
can
our
address
list.
that, but I think Vanessa, you had your hand up.
Oh.
Jump in.
Well, first because Christina's voice is really low, so whenever she speaks, it's quite far for me to hear. But I've been doing the same thing both for the Australian government and for the Project Management Institute. So my role at the PMI is I am Director of Education, and the mission of the Department of Education is to actually make students know, not just students, but also teachers understand that we exist, and then we try to sell project management as a different, a competitive asset for the student to have when they go to the industry. So looking for this way, I think that we could not try to get them to come and listen to us, but the other way around, like we would go and hear them and also make them understand. Oh, so what are your the challenges today for the young professional and the student graduate students? So what are the challenges you were facing when you go to an interview or whatever? They will get to a point eventually that they're not global enough, or that they are not engaged enough. We can lead the conversation so they can understand that these are qualities that they are missing and that CDS can provide. So maybe because this is more appealing than just, hey, why not join a community? They will feel like it's just well, I have so many groups on WhatsApp. Why am I going to join another community? You know, so it's just like maybe offering them, giving them like real value. The other thing that I do is that I do the same thing for both my work and my volunteer work, so it's kind of mixed. But the other thing is we have ambassadors as well. So in the ambassadors program, we get one person that is already quite engaged. It doesn't have to be necessarily with CDS, for example, but they're engaged in the cause or something. And then we bring this person and train on this one person only, which is very cheap, and send this person back to their university, and then they will multiply whatever it is that we are trying to get students to listen to. So the ambassadors program has been working quite well. We understand that students talk to students better than anyone else. So they have the same people talking to them. The other thing is taking the word to the professors, because they're the ones who can actually change the point of view that students might have towards community, whatever. So when professors, for example, in the Project Management Institute, we have lots of material to show the teacher how to use project management inside class. And the classes are fun because they are project based, so students kind of like it. They don't necessarily know that this is project management, but that they develop the skills that are necessary. And then further down, and it is a long-term kind of approach. 2 years after they've already been involved with project management and they have already developed their skills that the project manager would require to succeed in the the world, whatever. So they 1 year, 2 years after that, we say, hey, remember you've been learning about this and that. Well, this is all project management. Why don't you join us and see what we can offer? And then what we offer them is usually a great network, because we reach them when they are beginning their graduate studies. So undergraduate studies. So once they're almost in the middle towards the end, they already know us, but they are not involved necessarily. And then it's a different approach, because we cannot see students as one. They have many profiles depending on where they are in their courses. So the beginners, it's a different approach. They just need to listen and see that it exists. They won't care. They're just having fun. And then the middle ones, they might have okay, so this is interesting, because this is when they're trying to find what they're going to do in life. In the 21st century skills, they all require a global view of life in general. So community development does give you that. And right now is very trendy as well, the design thinking and empathy and what is the word in English? Empathy, compassion. I'm trying to remember the words in English, but anyway, there are some words that are very trendy now, and they will, I don't know, the TED Talks are talking about it. I don't know, everything that is trendy is talking about it. So this is a way I think that we could reach students more effectively, because I was looking at the invitation, and don't get me wrong, but pizza was the most important thing I saw there. So it's like, okay, so if I'm hungry, I'll go, but not necessarily because I want to see anything about CDS. You see? So we shouldn't let things, well, from my perspective, I don't think we should
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
Hi, Karen.
What happened to your other compatriots?
Lauren had to go to a meeting.
Okay.
Yep, it's just the two of us.
Yeah, so it's just the two of us, but we met with Lauren and the full team about a week and a half ago. So, so Erin, do you want to give an update, or do you want me to?
Sure. Yeah, I can start talking about it, and feel free to jump in if I'm missing stuff. So, we were looking at the application. We've discussed a couple times now ideas around, what the project could be. And we really are kind of like, I think, focusing in on like what we could do as a group to improve community engagement practice here in Detroit. Whether it be for community development practitioners, government, for-profit, so what we're kind of landing on right now, our discussion between Virginia and I was trying to use this project in this kind of time period to develop maybe almost a community of practice here in Detroit around community engagement, a learning community. using our own networks and other folks we think that, would be important to be part of that conversation. So it might be a series of meetings, it might be collecting resources, but also probably a lot of just like discussion, like, what would folks who are practitioners here want to get out of it? How could it be useful to them? How would it be appealing to them to continue participating in, beyond kind of this project period, but something that's actually has a little bit of sustainability, not necessarily that would be ongoing forever, but at least for a period of time where we could really do some work that would elevate kind of like the discussion and practice of community engagement here.
The community engagement landscape here has really shifted in the last 2 years. And so that's why more than ever, it's kind of on the minds of practitioners here. So background.
So when Dan and I got together, realizing that all of the groups needed a little bit of, I don't want to say direction, but I know that the struggle behind this entire group is the fact that we want to get people together to do great stuff. But yet, so you need to leave it open enough for creativity and innovation, which is what we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But you also need to provide enough structure so there's benefit for all, and we're kind of moving everybody in the right direction. And actually the focus for you guys, it sounds like you're really heading in that direction, is the focusing on the process within this aspect of, it's not as much that you're in Detroit, although it's almost like a case study, guys, almost, because you are in Detroit. Okay. Detroit is unique, just like Lincoln is unique, Lexington is unique, et cetera, et cetera. But the focus really needs to be, what can we learn from this process? And it sounds like if it's a community of practice, what are the great things that you're going to, and obviously you don't know this yet, but what are the best practices from developing this community practice? What are the challenges? How does this add knowledge to how we engage our communities, particularly in the value with you guys? I would argue, particularly for CDS, but for everyone involved, is CDS, and I would admit this in front of anybody, but CDS is a very traditional, much more rural-centric group, okay? Mm-hmm. I think even making some of these connections with the more urban, a little bit more, I don't want to say novel, because it's a slightly different context. Things work a little bit differently in a more urban, suburban setting, if you will, than in some of these very isolated, more rural areas. So I think even making some of these connections, focusing on the process of engaging within this more of an urban setting, I think, whatever that project ends up looking like, and it sounds like you guys are moving in the right direction, I think could be very valuable, not only with the networks and the connections that will be made through that, but with what's learned.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we started a few weeks ago thinking about, developing a kind of strategy or toolkit. And then as we started talking about that, we thought, well, to help get some feedback on that, we should convene folks to talk about what's going on right now in community engagement and how particular tools and strategies may be working or not working. So, I mean, one thing, just to reiterate, that Erin and the team are kind of wrestling with is, is the process enough? Is that a project, or is it that plus kind of a deliverable of recommendations? So I'm sure that it'll all find its way and reveal itself. But
well, one of the things, I mean, and that's again where sometimes even going through the process of gaining knowledge is valuable. We don't want people to feel like, oh my gosh, I've got to have this like annotated book that's 500 pages long, and at all on any level. What we do want is one of the deliverables will absolutely be at the end of this. There's going to be a CD practice journal edition that is just us. So every group, there's 5 groups. Each group will write an article. In your case, it would probably be, what did we learn through this engagement process, or maybe a collection of best practices, or the challenges of, engaging within again, almost like a case study, engaging within an urban setting, whatever whatever you kind of learn through this process. So that will be one deliverable that's concrete. Okay.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about, I know that, people within academics tend to be like, oh my gosh, journal article, 300 pages. No. We're talking about something that's very practical, something that can be very useful, but still based upon, almost like action research a little bit. If you bring a group together and they have focus groups or something like that. I mean, we're thinking about a very practical 4 to 5 pages that ultimately, gets at the essence of what worked, what was best, what did you learn, what do you want people to know? Okay. So that's one aspect. I would argue, the other aspect can be whatever you want the product to be at the end. Maybe it's a dry run of this community of practice, if you will. And
Right.
maybe there's a couple small activities that you want this community of practice to do, or maybe it's starting a community of practice and what did you learn? Or I would challenge you, communities of practice have been around for a little while. They were started with back in actually I think it was the early 90s. It was in the field of education, and they wanted to pull people. And the only reason I know this is because I'm teaching this in a class right now. Anyway, they wanted their teachers to learn, and so they started pulling them together in communities of practice to learn about science or math or whatever. And it was more like a human capital building, if you will. Okay. So communities of practice themselves have been around for a while. I would challenge you and your group. I think some of the inherent value is the urban setting, absolutely, and the knowledge and stuff that you guys bring from being in a unique field like design, urban planning, human geography, however you guys identify yourself. Michael and I get in this all the time. But the other thing is what is unique about how you are implementing a community of practice? Right. Again, the idea behind this is what we're going to be talking about in a few minutes, which is innovation, So a community of practice is great. Pulling together different groups is fabulous. What tweak can you throw into that's a little bit unique, that's a little bit different? And again, innovation can be it can be a tweak. It doesn't have to be inventing the internet. But how is your community of practice and how you're engaging individuals a little bit different than the normal community or the community of practice that we've heard about that we see online? So that's the kind of the challenge that I would throw out to you. But otherwise, it sounds like you guys are absolutely full steam ahead in the right direction.
Sort of. I mean, I think we have a direction, though. We're trying to ask ourselves what would it be that would entice people to want to be involved in focus groups or communities of practice, and I don't think we know the answer to that. I think we have a grasp on, I think we can get some great people together to have some great conversations. But how do you sustain that, or what's the mechanism that will interest people to stay involved? And is it by actually using some of this money to pay them, kind of like a stipend? Is it we don't want people get tired of going to a lot of meetings. It's a digital platform, who knows? Everyone's already so overwhelmed with information.
Right.
So we don't know the answer to that yet. So
there has to be a value added, Virginia. It's the same aspect with this group. One of the struggles that I go through, and one that I don't want this to be a pain in everybody's butt the third or fourth Monday of every month, just getting together because it's another meeting. I really want there to be some inherent value to be seen through this. And absolutely, I mean, I think that is a struggle that you guys as a group are going to have to kind of come up with as far as, how do you get people to collaborate and pull together and form a coalition, whatever that looks like, that has inherent value that people are willing to engage. Is it internal motivation, external motivation, social justice minded? I mean, I don't know what the answer to that is. And I think that is absolutely something you guys will have to struggle with to figure out, honestly. So I think that's something that a lot of professional organizations, I think people know there's an inherent value to them, but I also feel like there's lots of them and lots of people end up being like, you can't be part of 20 professional organizations. It's just not realistic.
No.
So there has to be a purpose behind why you are engaging, So yeah, great questions. And I think these are the types of conversations and struggles that we want to kind of work through and learn from ultimately. So I dig it.
Right. Okay. So should we be crafting our proposal to try to utilize the full $2,500 that may be available?
I would encourage that. Now, ultimately, at the end of the day, and you know what, maybe that will allow you, if you don't necessarily think that because I have had groups that have said, that's money, like it's funny because you're always like, oh, we all need more funding, and then you get it and you're like, I don't know if we really need all of that.
Right.
I would encourage you to do, again, maybe get creative about incentives, about, some type of, I don't want to call it a reward, but I mean, just get creative with how to use your money. I would absolutely encourage you to use $2,500. We will update next time, but it has been a struggle to even get this money. Like, it's amazing how many laws and rules and stuff are out there to stop you from utilizing, money like this. But I would encourage you to be creative on how to, give it to the people who, like the Young Professionals group. They're going to try and offer half-price memberships for students, in order so that they can come to the conference and they can participate in CDS. So I would absolutely be creative to use that.
Right. Okay.
Great.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. I'm glad that you guys are
appreciate the feedback.
Moving in the right direction. And if you have any questions, just let me know. I'm going to go back into our big room so that we can start chatting about it. Thanks, guys.
Great.
Hello, Connie.
Hello.
How are you? How did you end up by yourself in the main screen?
Well, because I exited my other deal.
We didn't end up.
Sharon and I were done.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
We didn't.
We meet on a regular basis every month, so.
So you chat lots anyway.
Yeah.
Jim hasn't popped back in, and Vanessa, I put Vanessa in with Gary and kind of the Young Professionals group. So as far as the international group, I don't know. That may be a discussion for a future time. So.
We're all back. Oh, there we're back to the whole group. Thanks, Vanessa. I guess we didn't finish that, but here we are.
Was it me? Was it my fault?
No. They brought us back to the full group.
No, that was me. And actually,
we're back.
I texted everybody and said, we're going to end in 5 minutes. Sorry.
Hey, Connie.
Yep.
I just sent you the application form.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
All right, guys. So.
And John, for now, do you want to just put 2,500 in and send it to her?
Well, there you go.
They'll reject that. I know them better than that. I'll break it down somehow.
Okay.
All right, guys. So did we all have good discussions, hopefully? And I think hopefully everybody else got to chat with Dan. I know I talked with the Young Professional and the student group and the urban group. And so we had a great discussion on the project. So hopefully that encourages you guys to move in the right direction. If you continue to have some questions about deliverables, what would, expectations, how the money can be spent, the question has been asked, should we try and spend the whole $2,500? The answer to that is yes. I would encourage you to get creative on how to utilize that, how to compensate individuals, however you want to use that. But yeah, absolutely, I would encourage you to budget for that full $2,500. Okay. So with that, if there's not any questions, does anybody have a question about what we just did?
Only how you do that, Christina. I have worked with Zoom trying to get people into rooms like that. I haven't figured that out yet. You'll have to give me a lesson sometime.
I will give you a lesson. It's quite slick.
Okay.
used to it. So it's very cool. I like this.
It's pretty cool when it works.
Yes, it's very cool when it works. So, all right, guys, let's talk a little bit
Vanessa, welcome.
Yes, Vanessa, welcome. As I mentioned early on, the content for today, I wanted us to talk a little bit about this idea of creativity and innovation. I think that we probably all do a lot of really great things in our respective communities, but I don't necessarily know that, okay, sorry guys, I'm trying to share my screen and talk at the same time, and it is not working, so let me get a handle on this first. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now, and then I'm going to jump into, all right. Can you guys see?
Yes.
Yes.
Levels of creativity.
Can you see it now? Okay, good.
Creativity and innovation. We see it.
Creativity and innovation. So as I mentioned, I think we all do some really great things within our communities. However, I also think that there's probably times, I know I can throw myself under the bus for this, that we get used to doing the way things we like to do them, and we don't necessarily push ourselves outside of that box of what's worked in the past, what we like, et cetera, et cetera. So my challenge to you would be that today let's think a little bit differently about how we are engaging our communities, the respective communities that we work with on a daily basis, okay? So if we unpack it a little bit, let's talk about into the nuts and bolts essence of what creativity really is. And if you were to define creativity, as you can see, it's the ability to transcend traditional ideas or patterns and create meaningful new ideas. Now, as we get further into this, as we discuss this, the idea is that creativity also works very closely with innovation and is necessary for innovation, and that something has to be useful from this. But I think at its very essence, creativity is definitely thinking a little bit outside the box, if you will, okay? A lot of people would say it's a function of curiosity, imagination, knowledge, questioning why things aren't maybe the way, different from the way they currently are, okay? One of the fundamental aspects of creativity is this idea of having a knowledge base. So even if we have been doing community development work or community engagement work for 40 or 50 years, that actually, and that super in-depth knowledge should encourage us to be able to be more creative and to be able to challenge ourselves to think a little bit more outside the box, okay? So it's not only where your knowledge is at, because you do have to have a fundamental knowledge of community, of engagement, of community development, of innovation, whatever that may be. But it's also this level of curiosity, okay? How can I improve things? How can I continue to make things better? I end up doing a lot of in-class teaching. I mean, I teach several classes, and I'm always trying to not only do the best job that I can in instruction, but also how can I tweak that? How can I improve that? How can I add and make things, continuously improving, okay? We should also be thinking about this when we engage in our communities, and being creative and thinking creatively can help us to do that. Ultimately, just having knowledge doesn't guarantee innovation. Sometimes we've got to shake up what they're calling bits and pieces. Sometimes we've got to shake up the way that we're doing things, okay? So it can be argued that when we start talking about levels of creativity, that there's different kind of ways and levels at which you can engage when you start talking about creativity, okay? And that first level is discovery. This basically is when you if you're working in your community, if you happen to be, maybe teaching a class, if you happen to be hanging out in, a church, at a school, when you become aware, you stumble upon something and something that is unique and different, that's kind of the very fundamental level of what creativity is, okay? As you can see on the slideshow, a lot of times we can talk about art, okay? It may be a rock with a unique shape or a piece of wood with an interesting pattern, but a lot of times you can almost stumble upon it, okay? So that's the first level of creativity. A little bit higher level is called invention, okay? And they talk about this is something that is going to happen, and so it's automatically going to happen. So this is something that you have to take the initiative in order to encourage it to happen. Okay. So it builds on discovery, but ultimately it's just a little bit higher. And then creation is the last one, and this is the highest level of creativity. Okay, and they talk a little bit about this idea of Elizabethan drama and Shakespeare and all these types of things. But it's when somebody actually kind of wrestles an idea into submission and says, okay, you know, we've discovered this, we've stumbled upon it, something's a little bit different. Now, are we going to kind of wrestle it into submission and make something new about it? When we talk a little bit more about innovation, obviously somebody wrestled into submission this idea of the internet, okay? And they said there must be a new way to be able to communicate, and poof, this is what it is. So creativity happens at all levels, and as you can see, as you get in and you add more layers to it, it gets deeper and deeper until you actually are creating new and novel ways. For us, it would be new and novel ways to interact or engage within communities. Now, when we start looking at what innovation is, innovation and creativity have a connection, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But innovation in and of itself is the production or adaptation of something new. Innovation is not just something that you produce. The internet is actually an outcome, okay? Innovation also, the essence of innovation is within a process as well. Okay, so you can actually, there's the process of making things new, which is, it could be an innovative process. You can also have innovative products such as the car, the internet, et cetera, et cetera. And there's two types of innovation, and disruptive is one of those. I think when we think of innovation, that's what we think about. So we think about, oh my gosh, I have to radically change the way things are done. So when we start thinking about working within communities, sometimes we're like, you know what? Community listening sessions, focus groups, asset mapping, these are all things that really work as far as, you know, hearing what the community needs are. We like them, we don't want to radically shift them, okay? And they work pretty well. I would argue that a majority, and research argues, a majority of innovation isn't necessarily disruptive, which means throw everything out and start all over, okay? The internet was absolutely disruptive. I would argue that a lot of innovation that we are looking at, particularly when you're talking about communities, is much more incremental, okay? What's an existing program, a product, an element that we can tweak just a little bit to make it a little bit better, that may work better for certain types of communities, that may work better for certain people to engage them, but that we don't necessarily have to throw everything out that we started with, okay? Again, a little tweak, a little change, a little incremental innovation, and we can move into, you know, this new and different way of engaging individuals or engaging communities. A lot of innovation traditionally has been within the kind of entrepreneurial, economic, business mindset, okay? Probably about 15 years ago or 20 years ago, they started saying, you know what, innovation just does not necessarily have to be within the more business, economic mindset. We do a lot of innovations within the social fabric of society, and that's where social innovations have come into play. And actually, more recently, I would argue that there's probably some really wild social innovations that have been happening that is very different from the more traditional kind of business economic innovations of the past. Social innovations are new strategies, concepts, or ideas that basically contribute and strengthen society. They generally have a social purpose. Probably one of the most, actually, one of the best social innovations, which actually kind of marry social innovation and economic innovations in the past, have been similar to a GoFundMe site back in the day. And I don't know the name off the top of my head, but there's basically websites now where you can go to where you can donate to, you know, people in Africa who are doing different economic ventures, very small amounts. And these are kind of direct, small sub-loan type things. And when those came about several years ago, they were, I mean, I think one of them won a Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, they were really super innovative for them, okay? And there's still lots of these types of things that are happening. So social innovations specifically contribute to improving society and having a social purpose. So what's the connection then? There must be a connection between creativity and innovation, okay? Ultimately, innovation is a conversion of ideas from a creative process. So if you're innovating, you're probably being creative, okay? again, you're probably thinking novelly a little bit differently about a process or about a problem, about an issue, about a way of engaging individuals. So this will lead to new improved products, services, processes, social causes. But ultimately, innovations do require creativity, but they also need to be useful and add value. And when you're talking about social innovations, a lot of times this value that's added is value added to society. It helps to solve a social problem, or it helps to satisfy a social need along those lines. Are there any questions at this point? I know that I've been talking a lot. All right, we'll keep going. All right, so we know that creativity is important. We like to say, hey, how are we going to innovate within our communities? And in a second, I really do want to have a chat with all of you on what you are doing that's innovative within your communities and within your community engagement. But if you're sitting there going, okay, I'm really great at talking with my community, I'm really great at communicating and engaging with my community, but I don't necessarily think I'm all that innovative, how do I end up integrating more of that into what I do? Okay. There are some strategies that you can use to help be more innovative within the different communities within which you engage. And a lot of these, and you guys can obviously read them as we run through them. I'm not going to spend a ton of time here, but a lot of these are just being more open to this idea of considering, to your senses, to considering things from different perspectives, to opening up your mind a little bit. And not doing maybe some of the more rote, this is how I've always done things. It's a good way of doing things. And I'm going to continue to keep kind of trucking, if you will, basically. Truly creative people have developed their ability to observe using all of their senses. I know that, I think it was Ron Hustedy and Richard Young and a couple other people talked about radical walking at the CDS conference a year or two ago. The idea of that is when you walk through a community and you actually use all 5 senses. Okay, I know that I've done this with a few individuals that I have worked with before. Sorry about that. So use all of your senses when you're thinking about this idea of maybe some things working in your community haven't worked all that well. So listen, and maybe you engage things as far as talking. Maybe you try and engage through, we use food a lot, but start using your senses to see what are the things that are happening in community and how maybe can I look at things from a slightly different perspective. Again, expand your knowledge base. We can all, lifelong learning. I mean, it's very important. We all do this on a daily basis. Be careful how you're perceiving things. Guys, particularly when you've been in a community or working with a community for a long time, we tend to have ways that we look at things, and that's great. But ultimately, you have to also be willing to be able to step back and say, okay, am I being unbiased, or have I kind of gotten a rut of the way that I perceive in the paradigm that I have? Okay. Practice guided imagery. This is really, really hard for me because you need to demonstrate it to me. I mean, write it down on a sheet of paper, draw it out on a PowerPoint. I don't care, put it on the wall for all I care, but it's hard for me to see things. Sometimes, jotting ideas down on a board and stuff, or even drawing something will help kind of jog your memory as far as, okay, well then maybe we can look at things in a little different way. Let your ideas incubate by taking a break from them. Maybe you do a brainstorming session with yourself, with your community, however you do that, and then you leave it alone for a little while. Okay, you go off and maybe you do some type, in here, the example is you go play music, or maybe you go take a ride on a motorcycle, or, you just get away from the office for a little while, away from the community for a little while, okay? And then come back and revisit. You would be amazed at putting a little space between you and yourself and the ideas, you may come with a completely different perspective when you walk back in on them, okay? Maybe a good night's sleep will help. Sometimes you just need to take a break. Experience as much as you can. And I would also argue experience as much diversity as you can. Engage with different communities. Try different experiences. All this adds to who you are and may end up giving you a slightly different perspective to break into that more of an innovative thought process or look at an innovative project, okay? Treat patterns as part of the problem. Redefine the problem completely. Start all the way from the very basics. look where others aren't looking and see what others aren't seeing. Okay, again, sometimes you may, and maybe you bring in somebody to look at it from a different perspective. It's amazing. I have 4 kids, and it's amazing when I look at something, they go, did you see this? Or why is that over in that corner? And I'll look at it, I'll be like, it didn't even occur to me, you know, that people from different perspectives, a lot of the times, they can see stuff that you cannot and see from a different paradigm. And then the last one, that the suggestion is, come up with the ideas at the beginning of the innovation process and then stop. And I like ending on this one because a lot of times we're really great at coming up with more ideas and more ideas and more ideas, but then we don't necessarily have the time and the effort or the ability to follow through on those, okay? Your life and everything shouldn't be an endless brainstorming session. I think that would be really frustrating if it is. And so coming up with some of these innovative ideas and trying to implement them and work through that whole process is great, and follow it through ultimately, as opposed to this kind of idea of a continuous brainstorm. Are there any questions? I'm going to jump into, so is there a question?
No, I just wanted to say how much I enjoyed that. That was really interesting to sort of, you know, go back over and see some of those concepts again. So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Thank you. I'm going to, now we're going to, I want to show you this. Okay, I'm trying to get to my website. So let's see.
So Chris, while you do that, it was discovery, invention, and then what was the third level? Creation. Creation.
Yeah.
So I hope I hope that the Fellows program collectively is creation. Maybe it's all these things. I don't know.
Okay, click to exit. Okay. I want to show you guys this really cool website, and this is where, yeah, come here. Okay, there we go. All right, now we're back to, I'm gonna master technology at some point. Okay.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, it's a good goal.
I'm trying hard.
There it is. It looks like the Stanford Social Innovation Review.
So guys, I would strongly encourage you to jump onto this this website. I ended up finding this, and we can go to, yeah. As you can see, this is something that's based out of Stanford. And as I mentioned earlier, this idea of social innovation is basically kind of thinking creatively and uniquely and coming up with new and better ideas about things that have a social justice mindset, or something that makes a difference within society, okay, if you will. As you can see, they have all sorts of, they've got blogs, they've got kind of small thought pieces, they've got papers, they've got them on different issues such as energy, the environment, food. There's a magazine. There's lots of really cool resources on this page, and I'm actually going to, this is one of the links I'll put on our new webpage so that you guys can go here and explore for yourselves. But one of the aspects, so when I went in here, I clicked on civic engagement, and they have a lot of different kind of thought pieces. But one of them is this really cool, and this is what I would throw out for kind of my idea of what could be an innovative way to engage community. This kind of conceptual framework, if you will, about how to engage community in an innovative way, or the roles that you play in movement for social change. And so again, we're not going to necessarily take the time to read this whole article. It's not very long anyway, but it does talk about what role do we play in bringing on change within our communities, okay? And I think that they actually provide a pretty cool conceptual framework, if you will, on what it looks like to engage in our communities in different ways. And there's 3 different things that they talk about. They talk about being an agitator, an innovator, or an orchestrator. An agitator brings the grievances of specific groups or individuals to the forefront of public awareness. Okay? In my head, when I think about this, I think more of kind of like a community activist, if you will. Okay? It's somebody that's actually being communicative and realizing that there's an aspect of your community or the community you're engaging with that may have a need or an issue or need a voice, and they bring that voice to the forefront. So that's one way, that we can engage with communities in this role, okay? Another way is as an innovator. An innovator creates an actionable solution to address these grievances. So it's not necessarily just bringing up the idea that there's issues or that there's a need here, but it's also saying, okay, so here's a problem, here's an issue, now how do we go about solving it, okay? And then the third one is what they call an orchestrator. And an orchestrator coordinates action across groups, organizations, sectors to scale the proposed solution. So we've got almost like the community activist aspect that they're calling an agitator. We have an innovator who is kind of the dreamer that comes up with solutions that may help solve the issue. And then the orchestrator I would call is somebody who could facilitate getting that done, okay? So what are your guys' thoughts as far as these kind of different levels of engaging with community and encouraging community change?
So, Chris, as you were doing that, I was sharing that I'm being a local agitator around a landfill issue. But I was thinking, our teams are orchestrating change, but a lot of our teams need local innovators to be able to convene or get groups going. ISQUALS needs an innovator in CDS and somebody in ISQUALS. The Community Change Network needs innovators in each of the foundations. This is interesting.
I know that our students, at least in our program, and even some of the community members that I've worked with, they blur the lines between all these often, because I know I have students that are like, oh my gosh, I'm going to change the world and I'm going to go into a community and I'm going to, I'm going to bring social change and justice. And that's great. But a lot of times activism is very different than community education, community development. They play a role together, but they're not one and the same necessarily. So I appreciated how they kind of broke things out like this. Vanessa, did you have your hand up? I thought I saw.
I'm just reacting because I'm having so many ideas as you speak, Christina, for the matters that we were discussing before in our group. So I'm agitated, not agitating.
That's good. What are other things that you guys have experienced as far as, have you been one of these? And this is, again, guys, I'm throwing this out there as far as ideas. These may be all wet. They may not be good on any level. So what do you guys think? Have you experienced any of these?
Definitely. I think this, for instance, being an orchestrator is so important, but a lot of times people want to be the agitator or the innovator, but the orchestrator is just as or more important. And I think these are great. You just talked about your students to show that there are different roles that you can play in community development, and you're going to wear different hats, and you don't always have to be the innovator, but you can be the convener and the orchestrator, which it sounds like our project might be headed more in that direction. So again, to echo the others, I think this is a really great way to think about how you can have agency in a situation.
Absolutely. That's a great point. Great connection.
That, I think sometimes in community development, most others who try to understand it or want to paint us as sort of the orchestrators or the liaison, which we do a lot of that. But as Virginia was saying, we really need to move among those roles. And there may be different times when we have to, and depending on sort of what's emerging, what's needed. So, I could see really, that community developers is sort of a amalgamation, all three roles in many ways, and we have to be entirely effective.
That's a great point, Rhonda. Yeah. And I would also say, I'm wondering if, as you kind of say that, I'm wondering if also there's maybe not skills needed for each that are slightly different. You know, if you start talking about, if you're doing, you know, you may need to know how to do all of those, but an agitator has different skills needed than maybe somebody who's orchestrating the whole event, honestly. You know, from a skill developed capacity building type aspect.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely right.
And it would seem that no one person can have these skills or abilities. It would seem that there are personality types even involved. I'm not a good one at the first one, but I certainly need to have someone like that on my team. And so I think that would be part of what we would be doing, bringing people together.
Great point, Gary. Absolutely. And that speaks to the effectiveness or the need for collaboration as well. You know, they say a lot of times when you talk about leadership that you should know your strengths and then you should surround yourself with people who kind of fill in the weaknesses. And so, I mean, it's a similar trying to pull people together that have these different skills and these different strengths. I want to be respectful of time, and I hate, again, this is why we end up having, you know, the ability to put on the discussion board some of our thoughts. And because we always get in such good discussions, but I want to continue to encourage you guys. This is a great website. It has lots of great things, you know, great arguments on there and great ideas. Maybe this is the impetus to try and push you to think a little bit differently about some things. And I would encourage you, this article is not long at all on any level. Literally, it's what, maybe 2 or 3 pages. And so if you have a chance to go in and kind of skim over it and look what they're talking about, I would definitely encourage that. Are there any questions? There is a question that I have posted that is on, as you guys saw earlier, that's on the discussion board, that's on our new website, that I would love if you guys would go in and post an example or two of some super innovative things that you have done to engage your community through that you've seen. Connie, did you want to say something? Okay. Any other comments, questions?
Is this the question? What are the most innovative techniques, methods have you seen used to engage community?
Yep, that's a question that I would love if you would, you know, post a sentence or two about some things that you have seen or that you have possibly used in your situation.
Okay.
Any other questions, guys? This has been a lot of fun. 2 hours have flown by.
It has. This has been really good, Chris.
Yes,
Thank you.
you.
Hey, so before we go, I was trying to look back. We had, I think, somebody volunteer to blog in December. And I'm looking back at my notes and trying to remember who it was. Do any of you remember volunteering to write a blog or to start to promoting your efforts this upcoming month? I need to take better notes. Virginia and Chris and I wrote up a quick summary and posted it on the CDS site. We posted it on LinkedIn. We posted it on Facebook. It made it into Vanguard. This is a great opportunity to put out there some ideas. And so do we have any volunteers that would like to either write about kind of an insight or an application from either this Fellows meeting or about the project that you're working on? Oh, wait, you guys are all muted. Don't everybody jump up at once. Okay, so if not, what we'll do is summarize this a little bit and put together a thought piece as we did last time. And Virginia was a great co-author on that. Would anybody like to co-author it?
Sorry, I'd be happy to join in.
Aaron, way to go.
Sorry, is the blog about what we were kind of discussing today?
It can be. I was willing to see if a group wanted just to take it and write about your ideas or project that you're working on. But
Okay.
if there's not interest in doing that just yet, then yeah, what we'll do is write up a quick summary blog that talks about the Fellows Met again and some of the kind of concepts or ideas that came from
Sure.
this.
Is there a deadline that helps me?
I can, let's work on it. Let's you and I get together. What I can do is either draft something up and share it with you, or if you prefer working the other way around, you could draft something up and share it our way. So,
Okay, sounds good.
but I'll email you and we can follow up. So,
okay.
Thanks, Aaron.
Wonderful.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, I think we're here at the end. Thanks, guys, for a great day. We are looking for proposals for you guys to kind of finish up those that Dan emailed out, those reports, if you will, or that's not even a good term, but you know what I'm talking about, before the next meeting. And I feel like the next meeting is the Monday before Christmas. Is that correct?
It's the 18th
Okay,
of
the
December.
18th of December. So if you guys can email us your proposals, including a budget, and John, you are correct. I will not just say, hey, here's $2,500, go run around with it. With at least a pretty detailed budget, not extremely, but reasonably, if you will. But that will be due before the next time. If you guys will go in and just jot down a couple of ideas on our discussion board that's on the new website, that would be fabulous. And then just stay tuned for any other announcements and stuff on that website. And we will chat with you in between now and the 18th.
You know, some of those details may be not forthcoming until a little later down the road in terms of a budget detail. I mean, we have generalizations of how we'll use that budget, but we don't know actual line item of everything.
That's great, Connie. That's perfectly fine. What we can't do is say, oh, we're giving $2,500 to Lincoln, Nebraska. We won't do that. But
right.
General, like office supplies, food, memberships, you know, kind of generalized stuff. That's fine.
The budget that we have, is that supposed to be applied within a certain time range?
As far as the funds?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Chris. I gave an answer. So in one of the groups, they were saying, so do these have to all be expended by a deadline? And I said we're going to try by the end of, by next conference, next July, to hopefully have enough of the project kind of clearly executed, but not necessarily that that's your deadline. If your project is something that goes beyond that and you know how those funds are going to be spent, we just work that out. That was kind of how I was thinking this would happen.
Yeah, I think the idea is spent or have a plan for. You know, if you haven't spent every cent by next June, that's fine. But if you also saying, hey, we have $2,000 and we're going to use it over the next 5 years, that's not okay. So as long as you have a plan for how to distribute it and it's, you know, you're already well on your way, I think that that's probably appropriate. Any other questions? All right, guys. Well, if you have any questions, let me know. I know. And if not, we will see you again on the 18th.
See you on the website.
Everyone.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Have a good evening. Thank you, Chris, for recording and tracking this. So.